I define innovation as creating value by doing things differently. So what things are we talking about? There are many things in a company. Our products, our services, our processes, manufacturing processes, and so on. It could also be our marketing strategies, new technologies. We can innovate across all kinds of dimensions, business model. So that's what innovation's about. And how do we become excellent at innovation? Well, that means that the company has to look beyond the next product or the next service and try to understand how to embed innovation as a sustainable capability. So we've become excellent at quality, we've become excellent at service, we've become excellent at supply chain management and these other capabilities. So it's just understanding that the next step is achieving what I call innovation excellence. I think we've been looking for, what's a great leader for the last, I don't know, couple of hundred years, maybe a couple of thousand years. For me, a great leader is someone that can point the way forward for a company and understand where that company should be going, but also somehow motivate the employees across an organization not to do what the leader wants, but to want what the leader wants. So an example of a great leader right now is Elon Musk of Tesla and SpaceX. So when I go to Tesla and I talk to the people there, ask them a question, every answer begins with the word Elon. Elon says this, Elon wants that, Elon thinks this, and they naturally want to be a part of this whole movement at Tesla to change the world. They really feel like they're, creating a better planet, and so that's what you want a leader to be, someone who can engage people in a vision, in a large dream of achieving something that will make the world a better place, make customers happier, and build a great organization. So, with innovation, the only way to really make innovation happen is, and the same is true with Elon Musk, is to have that commitment from the top. One example of Elon Musk is he'll tell people to do things that are really impossible, and they achieve those things. So they say it's like being thrown out of an airplane and designing the parachute on the way down. But somehow he brings the best out of people, and Steve Jobs used to do the same thing. Leaders have to understand that their role is to raise the level of innovation across a company. And the only way to do that is by making innovation their central job. So a lot of leaders think, I'm here to drive revenue growth, to cut costs, to help the company become more efficient. But really the goal is, how do we create a company that's continuously renewing itself, that's driving dramatic growth? And so the leader, in my experience, has to see that as a central job. Alan Lafley of P&G, CEO of P&G, is a good example of someone that says, innovation is my central job. It's also the central job of every leader across this organization. So instead of having one engine driving things, you have lots of engines, lots of leaders everywhere that are all driving innovation forward. Well, we tend to see execution capabilities here and innovation skills over here, but why can't we why can't we execute innovation brilliantly? One of the problems with innovation actually is that people come up with ideas and then they fail in the execution, because we sometimes call that the valley of death, the sort of chasm between idea and reality, execution. One of the things that great companies do well is they execute well. So Apple doesn't just come up with a beautiful concept for an iPhone. They produce and execute the most beautiful appliance you've ever seen. So people then tell you, I love my iPhone. I love my iPad. At least they used to in the old days. And Tesla's the same. So it's not just coming up with a beautiful concept for an electric car. It's producing the safest car in the world. A car that's been voted the car of the century You know, and this is their first car to produce. So really, execution skills are just as important to success as coming up with, you know, some innovative thing in the first place. I'd like to bring those two things together. So a sustainable capability innovation is where you don't just come up with a new breakthrough every 10 years or 20 years or once in a blue moon. It's something that you do continuously, something that becomes part of everyone's job every day, everywhere. That's sustainable. And the way you do that is the way you make anything else sustainable inside a company, whether it's quality or service or safety or compliance or supply chain management or any of those other things that we have turned into enterprise capabilities. So the way you do that is by addressing 4 components. The first is called leadership and structure. So leadership commitment and management infrastructure for innovation. The second is processes and tools. So we need systematic processes and we need enabling tools. The third component is what I call people and skills. So this is engaging everyone across the company, training them, building innovation into their KPIs, metrics, and so on. And then the fourth component is called culture and values. So it's kind of all the stuff around that becomes the glue that holds it all together is your sort of everyday cultural environment. And we need to make sure that that cultural environment supports innovation rather than, you know, strangling it as you know, usually happens inside a company. You have to drive leadership commitment from the top. So it's one thing for the CEO to say, we want to build a great innovative company. But if all of the other leaders ignore that, then nothing will happen. So what usually works inside a company is to change, for example, the compensation packages of all the leaders to make 30% of their compensation, for example, directly linked to the innovation performance of their business unit. So suddenly, 30% of my money is based on my innovation performance. Or giving them very ambitious stretch goals. So you might say, you as a business unit leader have to come up with $100 million worth of innovation this year, or 300 million, which is the case with General Electric. Once you do that, you have people's attention. And when you drive innovation from the top, you find that everybody else in the organization is going to follow through, because what you focus on is what you get, and so that's kind of a general rule. Disruptive innovation, as opposed to incremental innovation. Incremental innovation is where you're continuously improving. So Kaizen, you know, how do we make our products or services 3% better, 5% better, 10% better? Disruptive innovation is how do we make things 10 times better? So how do we go to the extreme? And so disruptive innovation tends to revolutionize an industry because it changes the basis for competitive advantage. It changes the economics of an industry. It creates incredible new value for customers where they'll look at the old thing and say, that's obsolete now, I don't want that anymore. That's the kind of thing that's disruptive. And there are actually right now quite a lot of companies that are well known for their disruptive innovation. Apple's been disruptive. Amazon's been disruptive. Of course, we have Uber, Airbnb, but it's things like Snapchat, Instagram. Those are modern disruptive things. There are a lot of other examples too, Netflix, etc., etc. So disruptive innovation is the new imperative, because if you are not disrupting, you will be disrupted, basically. And business models are under incredible threat today from disruption. Most business leaders recognize that, you know, up to 30% of their revenues are under threat already from some disruptive newcomer in an industry. So companies really have to step up and ensure that their innovation efforts are not just about little tiny improvements, new and improved, but about how do we come up with the next breakthrough thing, and then when we do that, how do we do the next one and the next one and the next one? That's, I think, what's wrong right now with Apple. Is Apple was tremendously disruptive, breakthrough, game-changing, and then they stopped. After Steve Jobs passed away, we get a slightly bigger iPhone, slightly smaller iPad, a slightly better operating system, and a watch. But we don't see the breakthrough stuff. I said 5 years ago to Apple that they should buy Tesla. That would have been a great thing to do. Well, one of the things you can do to identify those things is what I call an innovation diagnostic. So just like anything, if a patient walks in the door to see a doctor, you want to find out what's wrong. You don't just prescribe medicine. You do a diagnostic. You examine things. So we do the same. We go into a company and we measure those components that I talked about earlier. So we'll say, what's the level of leadership commitment to innovation? What's the state of your management infrastructure for innovation? They go, we don't even have one. And are you using systematic processes? Are you using all the available tools for innovation? Are you engaging people? Are you training them? Are you giving them like KPIs, balanced scorecard objectives? Are you bringing new mechanisms into the culture to drive much more of a free spirit where people can express themselves and come up with new ideas, and also get the time and the money to pursue those ideas? Are you doing all that? So we run this diagnostic inside an organization, and that gives us a feeling for what the company looks like. And once we've done that, we can see where the bottlenecks are. That there's literally, leaders talk about innovation, but they're not really committed. Or they're committed, but there's not really much of an infrastructure. So it's just one guy or 2 or 3 guys in a team, and they have to work with 20,000 people around the world.